Okay, despite my voice, I have a cold that I've been fighting for over a week now, which is driving me crazy. I'm going to make this video regardless. I made this video a couple days ago. It was going to just be my top 10 pieces of music by King Crimson, and I played samples of each piece, and of course, it just got blocked. So it's gone. So I'm going to remake it, but I'm also going to include my ranking of their 13 albums. From here's the first one, In the Court of the Crimson King, all the way down to The Power to Believe from 2003. So they're going from 1969, and then they broke around 1974. 7 years later, they regrouped into more of a pop prog group for 3 albums. And then they had an 11-year break from 84 until 95. And then 5 years later, one more album, and 3 years later, one more album. And the odd thing is, their first album, everybody knows, well, most people know it, and it sold gold and platinum, and nothing else did. Not one album. Now, all these other albums did rank in the US, except for The Construction of Light, that did not. And in the UK, this was 5th and 28th only in the US. I thought it was higher than that in the US. I can't believe it. It's only 28th. The second album was 4th, and then that's the end of that. It's 26, 30. You can see all the numbers are pretty high, and then the last two barely did anything. And I guess that's why they broke up. They realized that we're done. Who knows? But big drop off here from, even though this is not a big drop off from the Crimson King to the Wake of Poseidon, I'm shocked that this didn't come in at gold. Really, it's 4 in the UK and 31 in America, but then it dropped to 113 with Lizard 76, 60s. All it's quite a disparity. That's why I said in my previous video, which it's gone now, so you wouldn't hear it. After their first album, King Crimson faded into obscurity and was not heard from again, at least on radio stations other than, obscure ones. In Chicago, where I'm from, WXRT would play them occasionally. So I'm going to go through each album and show you the songs that I considered for my top 10. And as I go through them, I will tell you where each of my albums, where I rank each of the albums. So starting with the first album, In the Court of the Crimson King, this is their best album. To me, it's really not a question. I guess you could argue a couple other albums could be considered. I considered, and I'm not including their beautiful songs when I make my top 10 here. So I Talk to the Wind is not up for consideration. It is one of their best pieces of music. I didn't want to include the beautiful by King Crimson because it just muddies the waters. I couldn't do it. I couldn't make a top 10. I could rank all of their beautiful songs, but there's only 15 to 20 pieces by them. But I considered Schizoid Man, Epitaph, Court of the Crimson King, and that's pretty much the album. Moonchild is very beautiful in the beginning, and then it's very experimental, ending up in a kind of a filler for the album. But still a very, very interesting piece, and I'm glad it's on the album. So those are the ones I considered for the first album. The second album, In the Wake of Poseidon, ranks number 10 for me out of their 13 albums. And even though something has to come in 13th, I like every album. I think every album is good. Every album is worth your time. If you're not a fan of King Crimson, but you are a fan of prog, I encourage you to listen to everything. You will find some things that you really like that you've just never heard, because if you haven't taken the time to listen. For this album, I considered Pictures of a City. Cadence and Cascade is beautiful. Piece is beautiful. I didn't consider In the Wake of Poseidon. It's a very cool piece, 8 minutes long. I didn't consider The Devil's Triangle, which is 11 and a half minutes long. Again, it's an instrumental. I did consider Cat Food. I'm not going to tell you which ones make the top 10. I'm just going to tell you the ones I considered as I went through these. All right. So their next album was Lizard, put out in 1970. This one I ranked number 8. Some people rank this very high. Some people rank this very low. Highly criticized album when it first came out. did not do well from critics' standpoint. They thought it was bad. The one I considered here was Lizard. I thought about Circus, and of course, Lady of the Dancing Water is a beautiful piece. These two are fun. You either will love them or hate them. They're very, very bizarre. That's all I'll say about them. Okay, on to, and if you want to hear somebody reacting to all this King Crimson stuff, Just JP has reacted to that album. Quite a few of the albums he's gone through now, and he continues to go through King Crimson. So he's going through everything. So check out Just JP for some really good King Crimson. His Patreon is where you can hear all of his reactions in full. The King Crimson ones are all edited. They'll just get blocked. All right, Islands comes out. Islands comes in at number 8 for me. I think it's a very interesting album. Very, very different. Again, they just keep changing. Their albums are very different from each other. And I considered the letters. I like everything on here. I really do. Song of the Gulls is basically classical music. It's absolutely gorgeous. If I had to rank their pretty pieces, that might be number 1, along with Mate Kudasai. Those would be my top 2 pieces for the beautiful side of King Crimson. Islands is a very interesting track at almost 12 minutes in length. All right, next album is Larks, Tongues, and Aspic. This is a great album. I rank it number 3 out of the 13. I considered Larks and Tongues and Aspic, which is spread over 3 albums. So parts 1 and parts 2 are on this album. Book of Saturdays is just a beautiful piece. I considered Exiles for top 10. Easy Money's cool. Talking Drum is cool. It's all good stuff. And it's just a great album. Phenomenal album. Their next album was Starless and Bible Black, and you'll see this phenomenal album didn't do all that well. None of them did. It's sad, but it did come in number 8 in Italy, so that's something. All right, Starless and Bible Black. This I ranked number 11. I think it's a very cool album. I think it's very interesting. Again, a whole different pattern where they're going here now. I like everything on here. I considered for top 10 Lament and Frakctured. Don't have a lot to say. The Night Watch is a beautiful piece. The Great Deceiver is wild. Frakctured is also on the second to last album, The Construction of Light. It's spelled Frakctured with a K in it, and I think it's an ED at the end. And I think it's just a continuation of this piece that Fripp calls the hardest piece to play on guitar. And there's a section on the second part on that album where you can watch him play it live. It's insane. It's absolutely insane. No clue how he even does it. Okay, so those are my considerations for that album. The next album is Red. This is, I rank number 2. There was one album I would consider that maybe I could rank above the first, is this album, because I considered all 5 pieces as top 10. Now they don't all make my top 10, obviously, but I considered every one of them. They're just great. Even Providence, the instrumental, I love that instrumental, and I think a lot of it is improv too. So phenomenal piece of a phenomenal album, and yet look at the numbers: 66, 94, nothing in here, and 45 in the UK, and 94 that's Australia. How did this album not do better? This album is phenomenal. I'm very concerned. And then 7 years later, they come up with Discipline, and it does a lot better. Well, then again, nothing here in Australia. But they're no longer using a mellotron. They've completely changed their groove. They're trying to go more commercial, which I was not happy when I first heard it. But then this album has grown on me to the point where I now rank it number 5. It's a great album. I considered Elephant Talk and Frame by Frame. Like I said, Mate Kudasai is their most beautiful piece. Song of the Gulls is an instrumental, so that's the only of all their pieces where they sing Mate Kudasai. This is the one. I didn't consider anything else for top 10, but great album, absolutely great album. All right, next one. And I'm not worried about the length of my video. I'm going to take my time and enjoy this. I like ranking this stuff. And again, my rankings will change. This is where my rankings are as of right now. So a week from now, this could change. This is just where I'm at, and I like sharing this stuff. So after Discipline, they came out with they had the Red album, then they came up with the Blue album, Beat, and then they're going to come out with the Yellow album, Three of a Perfect Pair. Now, Beat, I rank lower. I still like the album. I rank it number 12. Beautiful songs, Heartbeat, and Two Hands. Just gorgeous. I considered Neurotica of these, and I also considered Requiem. Requiem is very different. It's an instrumental. Requiem means Mass for the Dead. And this is a piece that you should definitely hear at least one time. That's all I'll say about it. Okay, that brings us to Three of a Perfect Pair, which I ranked number 9 in my rankings. Sleepless was their most commercial song, probably their most commercial song. Three of a Perfect Pair is cool. I considered all three of these, Industry, Dig Me, and No Warning. Now, Dig Me is the only one with lyrics. And it's a really, really fun song. And of course, Larks is part of the Larks, Tongues, and Aspic, which did make my top 10. But it's all lumped together. All 4 parts are just Larks, Tongues, and Aspic. Okay, so that's that album. Then we've got an 11-year layoff, and they come out with Thrak. I think Thrak is phenomenal. It ranks number 6 on my list. I considered Dinosaur, People, One Time is gorgeous piece of music. I considered Sex, Sleep, Eat, Drink, Dream. The whole Vroom thing is very cool. It's just a great album. And this was when they had their double trio, 6 guys on the album. Some phenomenal YouTube concerts with all 6 of these guys, 2 drummers. Crazy, crazy stuff. Great, great album. All right, last 2 albums. Construction of Light. This one's ranked last for me, number 13, and I think it's a really good album. I considered The Construction of Light. And there's Frakctured, which is 9 minutes long. Maybe that's not an instrumental. It doesn't say here. And Larks is on here as well. So part 4 in 3 different parts, as you can see here. I considered Heaven and Earth. This is a very good album. I really, really like it. And then finally, the last album, I currently am ranking this number 4 of my King Crimson favorite albums. I considered Level 5, Electric. I considered The Facts of Life for my top 10, this is. I considered Dangerous Curves. And The Power to Believe Part 3 is also called The Deception of the Thrush. It wasn't going to make it, but it's so interesting and so different. But I really, really love this album. So if you haven't heard it, I recommend it. All right, so I'm going to go over now my top 10. We're going to start with number 10. And I'm going to show you just basically the album cover so you can see the song. And coming at number 10 is Sex, Sleep, Eat, Drink, Dream from their Thrak album. This is a great song, just a great song. It might not make my top 10 if I were to do this again, but right now it's number 10. I think it's totally, I think it should have made the radio. Maybe it did. I don't know. Coming in at number 9 is another song that's not too long. It's only about 4 minutes long. It's from their Starless and Bible Black album, which ranks fairly low for me. But the song is Lament. This is one heck of a song. It starts out very slow and soft and just kicks into gear. 4 minutes of just greatness. If you haven't heard it, take a listen to it. That's number 9. Coming in at number 8, some people called this Larks, Tongues, and Aspic Part 5. It's called Level 5 from The Power to Believe. It's phenomenal. I can see, I should bring that over a little bit, shouldn't I? I can see why why people why people call it that, why they refer to it as that. So that's number 8 for me. Number 7 is parts 1 through 4 of Larks, Tongues, and Aspic. There's part 4 from The Construction of Light. Part 3 is from their 3 of a Perfect Pair album. And then parts 2 and parts 1 are from the Larks, Tongues, and Aspic album, of course. So great stuff. I think the whole thing is instrumental. I'm pretty sure. The first one is probably the most eclectic. It's 13 minutes long, and there's a lot of noodling and sound effects going on. I love it. Some people hate it. The rest is much more straightforward, the other 3 parts. And that brings us to number 6. Now, number 6, I cannot say enough about this one. I'll try not to talk too much. But One More Red Nightmare from their album Red. I have written a D&D story for those of you who are fans of fantasy, especially if you like Dungeons and Dragons. I've written 2 books so far, books 1 and books 2. It's a series called Forestera's Fate, and I use intro and outro music. That's why I'm mentioning that right now. If you go to my playlist on my channel and just click on the Forestera's Fate, if you click on book 2, scroll down to about the 10th chapter, somewhere around chapter 10. It's called Red, Red, Red. That's the title of the chapter. The intro music is Red from this album, and the outro music is One More Red Nightmare. I was quite pleased with how it all went down, especially the background video that I used. There was a moment where I was not expecting the background video to make the sounds that it made. It literally happened right like on cue, like if I could have cued something to happen. And as I was reading, you don't notice any hesitation to me, but I looked up like, what's going on? And I'm reading, and amazingly, I thought I was going to have to start over. And it turned out to just be perfect. So it's very, very cool. So check that out if you get a chance, and check out my introductory video from book 1 and let me know if you like my story. It's fantasy. It's basically D&D in story form. And I'm just trying to generate interest in it. I'm trying to get people to listen to it. I'm not making any money on YouTube, so maybe one day I will, but I'm not. Not even close. So I just wanted to mention that. This is such a good song. Oh my God, it kicks so good. Wetton's voice never sounded better. And that brings us to my top 5. Now, number 5 is an obscure piece of music by King Crimson. Oh, before I do that, I didn't mention my honorable mentions. There were 3 pieces of music that I considered that didn't make my top 10, but I wanted to mention them. The first one is Requiem from their album Beat. If you scroll down in the comments, maybe about 10 comments down, you'll read a comment about what Robert Fripp's guitar playing does to your brain. It's quite a cool comment. I think you'll enjoy it. The other song is from the Wake of Poseidon album that didn't make my top 10, and that's Pictures of a City. It is a great song. Really, really like it a lot. Almost put it instead of Sex, Sleepy, Drink, Dream. It was very close. And lastly was Frakctured. Frakctured is just too cool. It wasn't going to make my top 10, but I wanted to mention it because someone said that Fripp said that Fracture is the most difficult song to play on the guitar. There's a girl who plays it on YouTube, and I think Fripp mentioned her somewhere. She plays it perfectly. And when I'm listening to it, it doesn't sound that difficult, but the version from the last album, the later album, sounds impossible. It's unreal what he does, and there's a live performance. You can watch him play it. How he does it, I have absolutely no clue. So I just wanted to mention those. All right, number 5 is also from the Wake of Poseidon. Very eclectic piece, which my dad liked because my dad loved jazz, Cat Food. This is a crazy piece of music, and I can't get enough of it. Now, the Dixie Dregs also have a piece of music, an instrumental, called Cat Food. This is not an instrumental. This has got some crazy singing on it. It's just an awesome piece of music. It's just under 5 minutes long, so if you like alternative kind of wild music, almost like an avant-garde jazz sound at times, I can't recommend it enough. And Dixie Dregg's Cat Food is really cool too. You should totally listen to that version. All right, number 4, from the Lizard album. You all know what it is. It's the big, long epic, the Lizard Suite, I refer to this as. Nick and Lex did a reaction to this just recently, so go check out Nick and Lex. It was just Nick. His wife, Alexia, was not with him, but I know he sent it to her to listen to it. Really cool reaction. They want to do more King Crimson, but King Crimson blocks, and I bet it got blocked. Also, Just JP's reaction to this is amazing. I can't recommend it enough. Go check out Just JP for some great music analysis. Wonderful stuff. But The Lizard is just a phenomenal piece of music. And I love that it's 23 minutes long. Robert Fripp did not like this. He said it took him a long time to finally hear. I think he described it. He eventually could hear the music within the music, something like that. He said about it. But they played it live on tour. There's a video of them playing in Chicago. There's no visual, but they perform a version of Lizard. It's about 11 minutes long. It's very cool, worth your time. All right, number 3. These top 3 are in a class head and shoulders above everything else. I consider this piece to be the greatest hard progressive rock piece ever written, 21st Century Schizoid Man. Without a doubt, one of the greatest rock pieces of all time. I know I didn't put In the Court of the Crimson King in my top 10. I did consider it, obviously, but it's a great piece. I'd rather listen to Sex, Sleep, Eat, Drink, Dream. What can I tell you? I like it better. I'm not saying it is better. I'd rather listen to it right now. So it's higher ranked for me. But this is phenomenal. Now, I'm guessing a lot of you, if you're listening to this, if you've made it this far, are guessing that number 1 will be Starless for me, and you would be wrong. Starless is number 2. That said, I consider Starless to be one of the greatest pieces of music ever written. It is absolutely a masterpiece, and if you notice, that is the first time I've used that word. That is the most overused word in music, and it sickens me how many songs are called masterpiece in YouTube comments. I mean, like, it's ridiculous. People don't know what the word masterpiece means. Look it up. That's all I can say. This is a masterpiece. This is just an incredible piece of music. And the closest thing to it is by the band UK, which Bruford and Wetton were a part of, but Bruford was not on their second album. They wrote a piece called Carrying No Cross. It's about the same length, and the structure of it is pretty much the same, and it's an amazing piece of music. I will not call it a masterpiece, but it was, I believe, my personal opinion, Wetton's attempt to write another Starless, and I think he did a phenomenal job. It's very high ranked in my list of favorite pieces of prog rock. Carrying No Cross by UK. Check it out if you haven't heard it. That leads to number 1. Not In the Court of the Crimson King, obviously, because I've already said that. This I consider, there are a few songs, rock songs, prog rock, I'm going to say, that I consider to be perfect songs, perfect music. If you could compose the perfect song, what would it be? Roundabout immediately comes to mind. Another one by Yes that I consider to just be a perfect piece of music is And You and I. I do not put Close to the Edge in that title because Close to the Edge is a masterpiece that is the greatest piece of music ever written, in my opinion. So sure, it's perfect in that sense, but I mean something different when I say perfect here. I mean things like Roundabout, things like And You and I, and things like Epitaph. Epitaph, in my opinion, is their most perfect piece of music. If you listen to it and close your eyes, I recommend you do that with all of this music. Just close your eyes and be in a dark room if you can too. You'll really get the effect of the stuff. This is prophetic on a level that's kind of scary, but so is Schizoid Man. It's just a perfect song. about 20 years ago, I made a list of my favorite prog rock songs, and I assumed Close to the Edge was going to be number one because it's always been number one, and it is number one for me right now. But at that time, when I got to number two, I was going to put Epitaph down, and I couldn't because I had been listening to it. I had been listening to Epitaph, and I'm like, am I really going to make this number one? And I did. And it's all on my blog, and I was like, what can I say? This is the perfect piece of music. I can't make it number two. And for a time, it went over Close to the Edge, which is shocking even to me, because Close to the Edge is just that's perfection. That's prog perfection right there. But this is the coolest album cover too in rock history. There's no doubt. I think the guy who painted it passed away not too long afterwards. Very sad. But Epitaph if you haven't heard it, man, it's phenomenal. Just listen to it. Listen to the words. Listen to the way all the way that the music flows. Unfortunately, there's a couple alternate versions of this. So click on this one. It says King Crimson on it. The alternate versions are fine, but they're not as good. They don't have, and I don't know why they exist. I'm very confused by it. Anyway, that's my list. That is my ranking of Crimson albums. What are your thoughts? I don't mind if you disagree. You don't have to agree with me. Like I said, it doesn't matter. It's just an opinion. I'd love to hear yours. Put your list in the comments of the albums and the songs. And I hope you'll check out my D&D story and leave a comment. Leave a comment on Red, Red, Red. Let me know that you went there and checked it out. Or my introductory video of book one. Like I said, they're both in playlists. They're very easy to find. And if you like D&D, I can't imagine why you wouldn't like them, because my story I describe it as D&D in story form. That's basically what it is. One of the reviews on Amazon said, it reads, I only have a few reviews, almost no one's read my books. It said it reads like a great gaming session. I was so happy when he said that. That made my day. Anyway, sorry about my voice too. Hope you all enjoyed this video. I'll talk to y'all later. Bye-bye.